common interest. So this idea of alignment is very powerful. And the things that make for a good one are that it's known by all, it's simple and concise, and it promotes an emotional, at least at a little level, an emotional positive connection to what's going on. And then alignment to values. And values is, so the purpose is, this is what we're going to do. We create happiness, we're going to create trust on the internet. By the way, a compelling purpose is not we create world-class network interface cards. Because that's so, how's that sound compared to we create trust on the internet? Right? Trust on the internet is bigger than self. We create world-class network interface cards is self-referencing. Self-referencing statements do not make for a good purpose. We create shareholder wealth, not shareholder wealth. Enron, right? Okay, we won't go there. So bigger than self, widely known, simple and concise, promotes an emotional connection. That's a compelling purpose. And then alignment to values. So a couple of companies in the United States that are well known for excellent service are Nordstrom, which is a retail store, it's a department store, and Ritz-Carlton, the hotel chain, which actually is global. They have hotels all. Anybody ever stayed at Ritz-Carlton? Was it a good experience? Sure. Well, they're known for consistently creating a positive experience. And the reason is they reinforce their values constantly. So at Nordstrom, the employee handbook is one page and it has two rules. The first rule is do the right thing in the given situation. And the second rule is there'll be no other rules. So Nordstrom is known for their tremendous customer sensitivity and just a very positive shopping experience. They charge more than any other department store in the United States, and they are growing faster than any other department store in the United States. They are extremely successful. And that seems like too simple of a handbook, right? But what they do is reinforce that one rule constantly with stories about that reflect the values of the company. So they are communicating all the time. At Ritz-Carlton, they actually have 20, what they call their core principles, I think. There are 3 core principles and there are 20 altogether. But one of the core principles is we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And what that means is, so it turns out my son works for Ritz-Carlton, and I've been in what they call back of the house, walking through the back hallways that the guests never see. And when Andrew is his name, when Andrew meets another person, if it's housekeeping or engineering or the executive director of the hotel, they always greet each other. They treat each other with the same respect they treat their guests. We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. They live that value in how they interact with each other. They don't distinguish how they treat their guests from how they treat each other as employees. Hugely powerful. So that's how they reinforce that value. They live it in how they interact and respect each other, independent of where they are in the traditional hierarchy. So alignment to a purpose, alignment to values, critical building block for an innovative environment. So collaboration. So we mentioned this one. Nobody ever came up with a great idea all by themselves. I can't, who said that? I think it's Thomas Edison again, yeah. He had a lot of very clever things. So this idea of collaboration there's a couple of concepts here. And so great research on this. In fact, a couple of books, they're listed in the back. I think they are. Is there references in the back page? I think. Wikinomics, The Economics of Mass Collaboration by Tapscott. Wisdom of Crowds, Group Genius, Keith Sawyer, Groundswell by Bernhoff and Lee. There's a whole bunch of interesting research about this because collaboration is exploding because of the connection on the web, right? The connectivity and the access and visibility that the internet provides. So 2 key elements of collaboration is what's the reach, and that is how many people can you see or can see you, and what's the relevance. And then the third one is what's the diversity. Franz Johansson, who's the author of The Medici Effect, has done a whole bunch of work on collaboration and innovation. and makes the observation that really innovative things happen at the point of intersection between different perspectives. So that means that a group of people, a group of scientists, engineers, working on a problem, all trained in the same discipline, are less likely to solve that problem than a disparate or diverse group of perspectives that's cross-functional or cross-discipline. And so it raises some interesting questions about how we organize ourselves in these silos of areas of expertise, right? Especially universities. They're worse than business in terms of the silos and the hierarchy, and the absence of cross-disciplinary kind of interaction. So one of the stories, great story that Franziska Hansen tells in the book, there's a guy named Mike Pierce who is an architect, and he had an interest in insects as well. What's that called? There's a fancy name for insect study. I can't remember what it is. Yeah. It doesn't matter. And he had some friends that were in that field. So here's an architect and some entomologists. Does that sound right? Yeah, I thought I had it written down. Anyway, that fancy name for people who study insects. And his friends were talking about the amazing things that termites in the desert do in terms of how they build the nest. So Mike Pierce, as an architect, had a challenge to build a building in Zimbabwe where it's very hot, 40 degrees to 100 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. And without air conditioning, there wasn't enough power, electricity in the area they're going to build this office building to put air conditioning. So he was talking to his friends who are entomologists. I think that is the name.
That is it.
Yeah, thank you. And they were talking about how insects in the desert, termites in the desert, build their nest such that inside the nest it's always 78 degrees all the time. Outside can be 100 degrees or 40 degrees. But they have this way of architecting, and there are these big mounds and they go underground as well because that's with the thermal dynamics and the venting now. So he designed the building based on how termites build. Literally, he won an award for this design because it was truly innovative. Right? And it's an example of where two different disciplines intersect is often the point of great innovation. So collaboration then is a fundamental building block of an innovative environment. So another one is who's doing the collaboration, and this one, presence. Sorry, I'm not a very good speller. So are the people who are doing the process actually participating in the process of innovation? And one of the things for the service industry, which I work in, is customer presence. Because customers are a part of the service process. They're not the target of, but they are integral to the process of delivering service. It's their experience that makes the difference. And yet when you look at most business models, customers are not present in the design of services. Customers are separate, right? So this is another thing Henry Ford introduced back in 100 years ago. In making the production line really efficient, he removed the customers. Created this artificial boundary between us and them. This is the company, these are the customers. And what we're seeing is, for really truly innovative stuff, customer presence has to be persistent. That is, integrating, including your customers in discussions about process improvements, service improvements, those kinds of things. Patty Siebel does a whole bunch of work on that. There's a book called Outside Innovation that she wrote that talks about customer presence. So then the next one is tolerance. Are there two L's in tolerance? Tolerance for discovery, and we talked about that a little bit in terms of risk. That most companies are risk averse. They don't want to try something that hasn't been proven. Do we know if this works or not? Well, if you know it works, it's not innovative. If you're willing to take the chance. So most companies don't have much of a tolerance for discovery.
We've got a first follower strategy.
But that's right. Somebody else has proved it to work. Which is why the consortium is so small. We will never be more than 40 or 50 companies. Because most companies don't have a tolerance for the ambiguity that we deal with in terms of exploring things that are unproven. And that's our whole mission. And then